So it turns out that I've got a little bit more time today as I'm not working today. So I would like to start off by continuing on with what I haven't managed to finish in the stream before. And then later on, I'll take a break, have some food, and then come back with the Minecraft stream. So I'm going to start off by, there we go. Let's look at the list of things that we didn't finish. Oh, that's right. So we are working on the debuff system. When I was thinking about it, there's no point doing that. So we can just get rid of that here. And let's just double check if the actual applying buff works. So let's press play, start the wave, and see if we can see the debuffs being applied. So the system actually works because the enemies are being slowed like before. But let's see if it actually works. So who has the debuff? You do. Not the path, the guy. There we go. So what's the problem here? Enemy health. Oh, so wait. So it's serializable. Oh, so if we open the debuffs, we'll see that it's just a class. So the way for it to display is if we use system.serializable, and that way this field will now appear in the inspector, as it didn't previously. So now if we press play, we start the game wave, and we have a look at the enemy that was spawned. We will see that we have applied debuffs showing. There we go. We had the freeze momentarily there, so that means that works. And then there were some issues with the cannon tower, I believe. So wait, let me just look. So bullets, yep. So now bullets work properly. Actually, let's test the fire bullet as well while we're at it. Okay, so the fire bullet's not doing anything. Let's check out our burn bullet and see what's up. Where are we? So the problem here is that we are still using the wrong class. So let's remove the bullet and add the burn bullet instead, as burn bullet has now different code that actually applies the debuff. So let's try running the code and burning some targets, seeing how it works. Yep, so now we apply burn correctly. Of course, we should probably have some kind of an effect, like we did with the previous system. That will display the burn. I was thinking of creating some particle effect later down the line for the burn. Or maybe, actually, I have a different idea. So if we open our enemy prefab, we'll do this right now. We will create a little halo that flies around our enemy, like a little orbit, and that's going to be our display of a burn. So if freezing is just a cube, fire is going to be a bunch of little circles circling around our object. So I'm going to create an empty object, put it at the top, and that's going to be the orbit. Let's call it the fire orbit, like so. And attached to the fire orbit, I'll create some 3D objects. Okay, let's create some spheres, make them a little bit smaller, like so. Place them again above, attach them to the fire orbit. I'll change their position to 0, 0, 0. Actually, let's create one more, and I'll place them out by about 0.6, 0.7, minus 0.7, and then now 0.6. What was it? Was it 7? 7. And let's give this one a minus 0.7. And what's going to happen is when we trigger on the firebug, it's just going to keep spinning like this to show that it's burning. Let's also create a material, and let's call it on fire. Select our spheres, drag in the on fire, and slightly change what it looks like. I think we can go with the transparent effect like we did with our freeze. So let's add transparency, change how visible it is. Maybe add an... That's so weird. Actually, rather than making it transparent, let's make it shiny like this. I kind of like this. Maybe a little bit of transparency. There you go. No. Okay. And with this, let's add a piece of script to our orbit that will make it constantly rotate. If we go into, let's close off most of this code. Go into enemies and add a new script called the rotator. And all we really need here is update and nothing else. And what we'll do is we'll do this.transform.rotate, and we'll do something like, on which axis do we have to rotate our orbit? Let's just double check. On the y-axis. So we'll put this at 45 times time dot delta time, and here 0, like so. And this will just keep the object spinning. Let's attach it, test it, and then actually add, so it only to say it gets enabled when our unit is burning. So we have an error. Oh, that's right, because we had an enemy. So let's apply, delete, press play. There we go. So as we see, maybe we should change the color, as we are using red enemies, so maybe the burn should be actually yellow, or maybe orange instead. There we go, like so. And now that we know this works for sure, let's go into our enemy health, and we'll do the exact same thing that the movement has. So, which is a little check and update, which essentially checks whenever or not we are on fire. So if we go here and we go into update, we will do this, has burn, applied effect. We can just remove all of this. Of course, we don't want to set any speed. There we go, like so. So what we'll do here is enable something entirely different. So we'll do serializable field, private game object, burn effect, like so. We'll set all of these to has burn. And burn effect in here, like so. Of course, this has to change to fire instead, and with this we successfully burn or freeze the enemy. Since this is basically the same for both of them with two things different, it's actually possible to have one of these without it being repeated. So I will add some optimization to this later, but for now, it's good enough. So let's just put this into a test and see how that's going to work. Let's put a fire. Oh, that's right. We have not actually assigned the effect to our enemy. Where are we? Enemy health, burn effect, apply, disable. There we go. These effects, I think, are 5 seconds, so they do disappear eventually. There we go. So now you have a visual representation of being frozen or being on fire for the enemy. Now, with this done, we can take this off the list. So what do we have here? Oh, so now I would like to add some changes to the bullet. So firstly, I want to have some kind of a way to destroy the bullet if it travels for too long. So what I'll do is I will invoke, and we will invoke a disable bullet, and we will do this about, let's just set it to like 10 seconds. So if the bullet is lingering somewhere for 10 seconds, we can safely disable it. And then we want to cancel this invoke. When we disable this object. Now, with this done, there are a few changes that I would like to make for, where are we? What's the next? So we have that life. Please, what do we have? Add maximum. Yep. Oh, the cannon tower. So currently there's some issues with the cannon tower, or to be more precise, the cannon bullet. So the cannon bullet sometimes explodes in midair, and that is because of the following, this line of code. But, and of course, currently the cannon bullet does damage twice. So it does on if it actually hits the target, but it also does damage because of our AoE damage dealing. So what I kind of want to do is I want to get rid of the base function for our damage dealing, and I want to redo this system so it only does damage. So it actually does area of effect damage, and that damage gets smaller based on how far the target actually is from the explosion. And of course, I don't want it to impact on anything. I just want it to impact on collision with ground. So what we want to do is, where are we? Firstly, I want to check what tags we have for the ground. So our collision is ground. What do we have here? So I don't believe this will be tagged at all. No. So tile, tile, tile. Oh, I see. So path doesn't have any tile, tile, tile. But this has rigid body. Do the bullets have rigid bodies? Because if they don't, I'll be problem solved. Prefabs. Bullets. Let's check this out. No rigid body here, no rigid body here, no rigid body here. Is there rigid body on towers? No, there isn't, but there should be rigid bodies on the enemies. Yes, so that's fine. We can. So first thing I'll do is for the disappearing. What do we have here? So if let's just copy this. So what I'll do is if the other is not enemy. So what we kind of want to do is we only want to explode our bullets when we interact with something that is not the enemy, and because this game is structured in a way, it will only explode on collision with ground for this specific bullet. So only then we want to call the disable bullet at the very end. Now we still want to do the AoE, but we have to slightly add a little bit of code to the AoE. So before we get to health of enemy take damage, we actually have to calculate the damage based on several factors. So we have the position of this object and the other, and that's all we will need. So first I'll have a new float, which will calculate our damage. So that's going to be the damage calculation. And we will have a vector3, which is going to be our explosion to our target. And what that does is basically, there you go. So we'll have other.transform.position, and we'll do that minus our own transform.position. Now, next we will get the relative distance, which is going to be which will be our radius or range minus. Wait, we have. Let's see what do we have here. So we have the range of the explosion. Yeah, minus r. Okay. So I'm going to make another vector3 here, or no, actually a float. And that's going to be our explosion distance. And that's going to be essentially our previous vector3, which is here. And that's going to be, we're just going to change it to a magnitude so we can put it as a float. And now we will minus this value from our range, like so. And we want to, at the end, divide it by the radius, which is range. Whoa. Go back to where you were. And actually, it's not other. It's going to be our target at I, because we want to do this for every single target in our vicinity. Like so. I hope this is going to work though. So we have this, and now we can calculate our damage. So our damage calculation is going to be equal to the relative distance times, and that's going to be our damage. Like so, and then we just put damage calculation through. Well, actually, no. Let's do, so our damage calculation is going to be equal to math f dot max, and that's going to be, so 0 is of course the minimum that we could ever do, and maximum is our damage, like so. And with this should work well. Let's give this a try, see if the cannon tower works, and then of course at the end we disable the bullet, and it should only interact with our floor. Boom, boom. Yeah, so it does damage, and as you can see, there is less damage based on where we went, I think at least. So the simplest way to check if it works is to do debug.log damage calculation to get the numbers. Let's press play and shoot. Pause. We're getting the exact same value, which is not exactly what we want. But the question is why. Let's do some debug.logs. So what do we have at this point before we do our final debug.log? Okay, so we actually get some better values. Is it because of the math.max? Yeah. So we're not getting this. Okay, so with this, we'll actually get a way better calculation of damage. And now we're getting, yeah, there we go. So if it's direct hit, it does whooping almost full. If it, actually, if anything, we'll do a damage calculation is equal to mathf dot round to integer, and gonna do itself. Does this round to the highest or to the lowest? What if smallest? It returns the smallest math. What are the rounding options that we have? It returns the largest of two or more values. Nope. Smallest. That will probably be my best one to use, and we'll pass, of course, the damage calculation through. And let's see how that's gonna go. This should give us full numbers. Yep, there we go. That's actually precisely what we wanted. Now we still have some yellow warnings, and that's from, I believe, enemy health. There we go. And that's because these guys are no longer used, and to be honest, we no longer need them anyway, because the debuff system already checks and it doesn't allow us to have multiple debuffs at once. So that should work appropriately. With this done, that's another thing. So now there should be no more issues with the explosion. So I believe that is everything for this section. So now we can move on and start changing the editor. I kind of want to have everything before I add more enemy types, like so that I don't add any extra effects, because then I'll have to change each prefab separately. Because I plan just to have multiple prefabs out of enemies. Okay, so firstly, I want to make 4 levels that will be used as the default levels for this game. So let's go through scriptable, level, and check them all out. So level 1 seems to be set up properly. Let's set up level 2. Okay, level 2 seems fine too. What about level 3? Let's actually modify it slightly, add some brown areas, and now we're going to save this. Oh, I didn't add a path. That's right. Oh, interesting. So this section is not working properly. Let's reset. Oh, because I didn't reset the path. With this, I can save. Hello? Okay, interesting. So the entire saving of the editor is slightly wonky, but that's fine. Because this is going to get changed soon, very soon. Let's try level 4 now. Level 4 looks fine. Let's go back to level 1. Yep. And let's actually go into the game scene, check both levels out, and then we can start programming the editor again. So that will be in our map generator. This is not necessary for now, as I'll manually load in the levels. So let's load in level 0 for now. Yep, level 0 loads as it should. Let's load in level 2, 1. I actually don't remember if there were any dark spaces on this level. I don't think so. No. Okay. This one loads in as well. And finally, the last level. Perfect. So now with this, every level loads properly. Now, those levels will stay in our map generator and I will not remove their scriptables. However, in the actual editor, I will no longer use the level assignment. So if we go into our scripts and go into the editor, we'll open all of the editing scripts, and any reference to the levels will have to go away. We no longer need those. So all of that can go. That means there's going to be 7 references worth of errors, which is fine. So the entire save level has to be changed. And I believe there should be more errors in here. Like so. Like so. And like so. Like so. I'll keep them in and just comment them out so that when I replace them, there's not going to be that much of an issue. Now that we have this, we need to go into our save systems, because they need some changes as well. So firstly, our save. So this I'm gonna slightly change. So I'll have an extension, and it's gonna be the So I'll save everything as a text so we can actually access it and modify it ourselves. I'll remove it from here, and I'll also add a number, and that's going to be a save number. So our levels are saved as a 1, 2, 3, and 4, or actually 0, 1, 2, and 3 to be exact. So 0 is equal to level 1, 1 is equal to level 2, 2 is equal to level 3, and 3 is equal to level 4 with under. There you go. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna modify this to save our server. So instead of, I'll basically just duplicate this right here and do save level data. So we will be only calling this when we say save level. So we are going to save the username, number, and then extension. Or actually, rather than that, let's copy this over, call this the level data. Keep our user data, level data, hidden. So in here, we'll go level data plus the number, which is our save number. And then plus the extension. So each time we call save level data, we will be saving these following things. And of course, what we want to save is going to be all of the level data, however we will handle the saving. So let's first create a file and see if the file exists. So this is responsible for saving each specific level, and finally here saving of the data for the player settings like sound or resolution settings. Okay, now that we know that we will be saving stuff, let's go into the manager, and we need to slightly I'm just going to write some code that we will use later. So for getting the data, we'll cast things into a, so load the data flow, and then we just do save load manager dot load user data like so, and then we manually assign the data to their correct spot. Of course, we'll try and catch that just not to get any errors during the log warning data was not loaded successfully, like so. And for saving, we will do pretty much the same thing, but we'll just do save load dot save data, and the data is going to be this. So whatever we have in this specific class, so it's going to be these guys basically. And then in here, where are we? we will set what is saved how. So that'll look something like this. Boom, boom. I'm gonna get this. So our all user data is equal to new, and let's just put 3 here. Or is it like this? And then we would do all user data at the position 0 of 0 would be data dot, for example, music, and second one would be sound. Of course, I'm not exactly sure what we're going to save just yet. So the size of the arrays for data saving, I'll leave. So I don't write out something that I'll have to change later, but this is the basic structure for saving. And then for loading, we would do the reverse of that in here. So we would do loaded data at 0, 0 is equal, well, no, let's have a look. So we'll do set music, and that would be loaded data at 0, 0, and then set sound, which would be a loaded data at 0, 0, 1, like so. And that would set our music and volume sounds to what they should be in the game. Of course, those are just few values. Normally, the reason why I use double ones because I would have my general settings on 1. Any player data, like let's just say it's an RPG, there's going to be characters with stats, they would be under another one, and so on and so on. But yeah, moving to the game editor. So what we want is 4 sets of saves. We can actually incorporate that into this, but we do want it on a separate save instead. And of course, first thing we need to do is make sure we have those saves. So the first scene that will load is main menu. And what are the levels? Yeah. So what main menu has to do is it has to generate every single save file. So I'll do a new script in our scripts folder and in the main menu, and that's going to be initialize save data. And what this will do is it will check if the data files exist. If they do, then great. If they don't, then we create them, and we will base them off our current levels. So I'll create an array of our levels, private level, the default levels, like so. And then in start, we will create our save data folders. So what we will simply do is call our save load manager, and we'll do save load manager dot save data, because we'll save empty data. We'll save level data, save level data. And of course, we will have to, before that, set an integer for our load manager. So what we'll do, let's close this script for now. Let's close you, and you. Is that the correct one? No. Okay. So I'll make a public static set set number, set level number, like so. And what I'll essentially do is get an integer int level num, and I'll set our save num as a level num, like so. And by default, I'm just going to set it to 0. This will, of course, have to be done for every single file. So I'll loop through every single level. That's right, it's not an array just yet. Some things that I want to do. This no longer should exist, in fact, so I'll remove it so we don't reset our levels by any chance. Let's protect our levels a little bit so the default levels. Oh, actually, because this will ruin the level structure, I think. Let's leave it. So for each level, we will create a new load save. So we'll do save load manager dot set level number, and that's going to be our I. And then finally, we will pass through our level data. Of course, that also means that we need to have our script which handles that, which is fine because we'll need it later on anyway. So finish. Wait, what did we call it? Initialize save data. Oh, it's not going to show because it has errors right now. So save. So we'll add the save data manager and add this one as well, I guess. There are no compile errors. Come on. Where do you see a compiling error? Oh, hello? Remove level. So removing level, of course, doesn't exist anymore, which is fine. There we go. Go away. With this done, now we can add it successfully. So initialize save data is now successfully added. Now we will drag in our 4 default levels into the script. Okay, like so. And of course, we will do this, but we need to pass in the data. So we will have a reference to our run class to save data manager, save data manager, data manager. So data manager is equal to this game object component save data manager, like so. And then we can just pass through that like so. Of course, there is way more to that than just this, but this will at least generate empty levels for us, which is what we want. I think that is with this done. Once we do that, we also need to also load our generic one, and we will also have to check if those files exist first, because we don't want to recreate the file every time, but I'll leave that for the next part. I will not bother doing that for now. Let's now, since we're slowly getting into the set options, let's see how our options panel looks like. It looks like there is nothing there because there isn't. So what we'll do is we'll work on our options panel a little bit, and then I'll go make some food and start the Minecraft series. So let's just go into our little icon. So there's the return button. Let's just change the sprite for our typical button. We are going to swap animation, and then highlighted is going to be the highlight, as well as pressed will be the press version. I just realized that the target graphic is the default one is wrong. Should be the normal version. Text is going to be white and slightly bigger and bold, like so. For the options, I plan to have a little bar at the top. So I'm just going to create a panel here. This is going to be the options panel. So this is going to be the buttons panel. And the one below that is going to be our actual selection. So this is going to be the content panel, like so. Actually, it's not going to be in the way of the return button. I'm going to remove any visible graphic from these. And I'll add 3 sets of buttons here at the top. So I'll have a button, 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 and I'll use a horizontal layout group so they appear in this space. Of course, I want them to scale appropriately. And maybe we do the height spread as well. Make it slightly smaller. Give it a little bit of padding from the top. From the right and from the left. Maybe a little bit more. There we go. So they're not in the way. Now that we have this, we can select all of the text and then again go with our bold white. And for each button, we will change the graphic to our simple button texture. And then instead of color tint, we'll have a swap that changes the highlight. Of course, no navigation for them either. No navigation here. We don't want any controller support. If we did, we would have done it manually anyway. There we go. So the first one's going to be our graphics button. Second one is going to be our sounds. And then third one is going to be our gameplay. Now, here we'll just type in graphics. Here we'll type in sounds. And finally at the bottom, we will type in gameplay, like so. And then content will be everything that has to be. I actually like how it's spread like this. Button panel. There we go. Looks alright. The return button has to be slightly pushed. It shouldn't be there. So let's just move it up a little bit. And there you go. We now have a options menu that should now trigger if we use our there you go. So this triggers our little menu here. We can then return out of it back to the previous menu. Starting the game will load either of the levels. Of course, that doesn't work just yet. Wait, there was an error. Let's check out the error. Ah, that's fine. This doesn't, none of that has to work just yet. because we are not working on it just yet. As long as it doesn't give us errors in the game scene, that's fine. So yeah, that's actually, I would say, a pretty good start for what we have so far. There's few bugs that we will work on fixing next. Maybe add a little bit more towers, get the editor sorted, and then we'll finally be able to start adding more enemies and then balancing it out. Actually, since I still have 10 minutes before it's an even hour, I will add the beginning and the end nodes to look differently. So what I'll do is I will go into our tile block, which can be found in resources, prefabs, tile. So let's put it on the scene. Oops. Let's remove that. So what I'll do is I shall put a block on top of it. So let's duplicate this and set it as 1. And change the material. I'll put 2 sets of blocks on these. Materials. And we want a see-through one. So this is going to be a start point. And start point will also have endpoint. So our start point is going to be in blue, light blue. Let's duplicate this. Start point. Give a bit more transparency. And for the endpoint, we shall do the exact same thing. So that way the player knows that we're nearing the end. So again, change that to a color. Maybe slightly. There we go, like so. Now I feel like the start point doesn't look transparent enough. Nah, it's fine. Okay, and now if we go into our tile and just transform, so it's start point and endpoint, change it to a game object. And now if we go into our, so both of these are disabled by default, which is fine. Just need to attach, where are we? Attach the endpoint, attach the start point, apply. And now finally, if we go into our map editor or map generator, we can now set it on the path. So where are we? How do we get the path? I think the path gets seen here. Yep. So since I know what each point is, I can set the first and the last point of our tiles to the correct path. Path tiles. Okay, so it's called path tiles. So once we finish doing this, we can simply get the first and the last and attach them. So path tiles at 0 and path tiles at path tiles.count. So what's going to happen here is we'll just get component tile and we will do this. Where are we? Dot set active to true, and then dot get component tile dot endpoint dot set active true, and with this we will have the end and starting point based on our path. So if we press play now, we should now have a beginning and the end marked by the game. So the beginning did mark itself, but we get an error at the very end, and that's because what we do have to do in here is actually just put -1. Let's give this a try. There we go. So now our very first block where the enemies come from is set up as blue, and the final destination block is set up as red. Now, looking at this, it does look slightly off because there is a little gap because the actual blocks are not as big. So I'm just going to quickly change that. But there you go. As we see, they walk in and they disappear, and we lose our health. So let's fix that a little bit and go into our tile block. Well, the tile prefab. Let's enable the path block, disable the grass block for a second, and enable both of these points. Move them lower. Now all of these can be disabled. And we can enable the grass again. What's the path point? Oh, there we go. Let's save this, and there we go. Now we have a beginning and end that is actually shown. I think this is going to be good enough for this part. I definitely want to add some more towers and finally fix the editor, but that's going to be in the future parts. Now that we have all of the groundwork for that, and the game works pretty well, we can move on. I think there's still a few bugs here and there when it comes to placement, so I'll have a look at those as well. There we go. Okay. I'll be back in about half an hour doing Minecraft streaming.